The ocean was still that night, almost unnaturally calm, with only the faint hum of the engines beneath me. Fog rolled over the deck in soft, curling waves, swallowing the horizon until the distant lights of the shore vanished entirely. I leaned over the railing, feeling the cold spray on my skin, when a strange shimmer appeared above the water, pale and pulsing like a star that had fallen too close to the earth. For a moment I thought it was a reflection, but it moved, deliberately, almost aware of me. The radio crackled once, then nothing, leaving only a low, humming vibration in my chest. I tried to call someone on the intercom, but my voice came out broken, swallowed by the fog. That's when I saw it, a shadow sliding across the surface of the waves, impossibly fast, and I realized I was utterly alone with whatever was watching me. The deck was slick with evening mist. Cold, salty air clung to my skin, brushing my neck with tiny pinpricks. The ship sighed beneath me, slow and steady. Fog curled around the bow, thick and restless. I watched it twist, a soft gray snake drifting over black water. The horizon was nothing but a blur, gray meeting gray, and I felt suspended. A pale light appeared above. At first, I thought it was a lighthouse, somewhere distant, blinking, but it didn't stay. It hovered, quivering, like it couldn't decide where it wanted to be. Closer now, the waves stilled. An unnatural calm swallowed the ocean. I could feel the water holding its breath beneath the glow. It blinked again. Not like any lighthouse I knew. Impossible patterns, deliberate and strange. My heart thumped, uneven. Mist curled over my hands as I pressed them to the railing. Cold, damp, sticky. A hum rose in the air, faint but insistent. Soft vibrations under my feet. Or was it the ship? Or the light itself? The fog shifted around it. It seemed aware of me, watching me. The light trembled, then pulsed. I took a step back. The deck groaned. Wood beneath my shoes whispered warnings I couldn't place. The blinking slowed. One long pause. Then a rapid flicker, faster than thought, like the stars themselves had lost rhythm. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. A cold draft brushed my cheek, carrying the faint tang of rust and seaweed. It smelled wrong. Familiar yet alien. I heard something else. Soft footsteps, or the rustle of cloth just beyond the fog. Closer. Then gone. The light hovered. Closer still. And I realized it moved not with the wind, but against it. Controlled. Intentional. The ocean shimmered beneath, glassy and unreal. Ripples formed, then vanished, leaving perfect silence. No waves. No motion. Just me. And the flicker above, I felt my chest tighten. The hum wrapped around me, pressing. A shadow passed over the deck. No shape, no form. Just the dark moving as if the mist itself breathed. I tried to call out. My lips parted. Nothing came. Only the hum, the blink, the fog curling around my ankles. The light dipped, then rose, teasing the edge of sight. It wasn't harsh, not like a searchlight. Soft, pale, like it could vanish if I blinked. I wanted to step back into the cabin. Safety, warmth, light that stayed put. But my feet stayed rooted. Curiosity tangled with dread, a thin wire pulling me forward. The fog shivered, and I realized I wasn't alone. Not really, not in the way I thought I was. Then, just for a moment, everything paused. The hum vanished. The fog hung motionless. The ocean held its breath. The light blinked one last time. Not a pattern I could name. Not a shape I could hold. Just there! And then, gone. I stayed on the deck long after, heart thrumming, breath uneven, listening for whispers in the mist. But nothing came. Only the memory of the flicker above, and the quiet that followed. The cabin smelled of damp wood and cold air. Frost clung to the corners of the window pane. Outside, the pines whispered with the wind, soft and constant. I turned on the radio, just for company, but it gave only static. The static pulsed, a heartbeat under the skin of the room. I thought I heard my name there, folded in the hiss, soft, almost polite, but persistent. The walls seemed taller than they had this morning. Shadows stretched long across the floor. They moved without moving. I traced them with my eyes. Nothing shifted. Nothing breathed. A metallic taste hovered on my tongue. Sharp, faint, like iron soaked in fog. I swallowed. The taste lingered anyway. I reached for the door. The hallway yawned. Wider than memory allowed, longer than the floor should stretch. Each step felt slower. The air thickened with it. Breathing became a task. I stopped. Listened. Soft whispers curled around the edges of the static. Not words exactly, fragments, a sigh, a name, a pause, then nothing. The radio flickered once. A pale light shimmered over the floorboards. I could see the dust moving, particles spinning in a sunless wind. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The walls seemed to lean closer, the ceiling lower. Shadows pooled in corners, dark, heavy, patient. They waited. I didn't know for what. I moved forward, one slow, careful step. The hallway stretched again, longer, impossible. My fingers brushed the wall, cold, rough, but solid. Static hummed in the room behind me. It was louder now. A pulse, a rhythm, almost human, almost alive. I thought about the radio. Maybe if I turned it off, the whispering would stop. Or maybe it would start somewhere else. The door at the end of the hallway shimmered. Not with light, but with something wrong, edges quivering like air above a flame. I reached for it. My hand shook. A shadow moved along the wall. Fast, silent, then still. I blinked. It hadn't been there, had it? The metallic taste filled my mouth again. Thicker this time. I coughed, soft, careful. The hallway didn't cough back. It didn't breathe. It just waited. I opened the door. The room beyond stretched into darkness. Or maybe the hallway had shrunk. I couldn't tell. The floorboards groaned beneath me, soft, patient, like an echo of something alive. I stepped inside. The air was colder, sharp with rust and wet pine. Static followed me. It whispered my name again and again. I stopped moving, closed my eyes. The shadows pressed closer. Pale light flickered at the edge of vision. I felt it crawling over my skin, soft, icy. Something shifted behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't. The whisper was loud enough. It moved with me, around me, under the air itself. I tried to breathe through it, slow, gentle. But every inhale tasted iron. Every exhale carried the echo of the static. I thought about leaving, about running back into the snow. But the hallway, it had other plans. It stretched again, endless, waiting. The radio clicked. A single note pierced the static. Soft, clear, a voice. My name, then gone. I wanted to call back, but my mouth refused. Silence held me instead. Patient, heavy. I sat on the floor. The shadows leaned in. Whispers curled around my ears. I tasted the metal again, sharp, unyielding. I closed my eyes and listened. The cabin was empty, and yet I was not alone. The horizon was empty. Gray water met gray sky. Fog hung low, curling over the waves like smoke. I stepped closer to the edge of the dock. Wood groaned beneath my weight. Cold air wrapped around my arms, pricking skin. Then lights. Small, pale, distant, blinking, silent. I froze. They weren't scattered. They formed patterns. Lines, angles, shapes I couldn't name. Almost deliberate, almost thoughtful. I lifted my binoculars. A closer look. But they vanished when I focused. Gone. The horizon smooth and empty again. My hands trembled. A foggy taste lingered in my mouth. A hum ran through the floorboards. Not high, not loud, but enough, vibrating underfoot. A vibration that pressed into my bones. I held my breath. The air itself seemed to shiver. The lights returned. Closer now. Hovering just above the water. One in particular. Its glow reflected in ripples that weren't supposed to exist. The water was still. Yet the reflection moved. Slow, deliberate waves rolling across a calm surface. I crouched, feeling the dock sway beneath me. Cold mist stung my face. Salt hung in the air, wet and biting. I could smell the decay of old wood and something else. A sweetness, faint, almost inviting. The blinking lights shifted, like they were alive. Changing formation, drawing shapes in silence. A language without sound. I blinked. Could I trust my eyes? The hum grew, subtle but insistent. I felt it in my chest. A vibration beneath skin and bone. soft footsteps echoing nowhere. Or maybe the dock itself was breathing. I raised my binoculars again. The lights wavered. One drifted slightly forward. Closer. Still hovering. Still impossible. Its reflection fractured the water in a way that made my stomach tighten. I wanted to speak. A name, a question, anything. But no sound came. The wind swallowed my breath. Only the hum remained. And the blinking. And the water ripples that should not be. I stepped back from the edge. The wood underfoot whispered with age. The fog thickened. It carried the lights with it. A pale glow moving silently, teasing, drawing me toward it. I knelt. Tried to touch the reflection in the water. Fingers trembled. Ripples spread, strange and impossible. Not matching my movement. Not matching the wind. Yet reacting. Aware. The sky darkened slightly. Even in the fog, stars faintly appeared. But none aligned with the lights. They had their own map. A silent geometry that pulled at something deep in me. I breathed in slowly. Cold, damp, salty. The taste of iron lingered at the back of my throat. The hum vibrated through the air, through me. A heartbeat, slow and knowing. The nearest light blinked again. Faintly, softly, almost shyly. Yet it carried weight, presence, and then another. Blinking in reply. Or perhaps in command. I couldn't tell. I crouched low, watching, feeling. The dock beneath me alive in vibration. The water beneath alive in reflection. The horizon alive in impossible geometry. I whispered my own name. It barely escaped my lips. The fog swallowed it. The lights did not answer. They simply hovered, and then the hum receded. Fading into the mist. The lights grew dim. The ripples stilled. The horizon emptied once again. I remained kneeling, alone with the silence, with the fog, with the faint metallic taste lingering on my tongue, and the memory of shapes in the dark. Silent, alive, watching. The fog pressed against the boat, heavy, damp. Salt hung thick in the air, clinging to my skin. The ocean was calm, too calm. Even the waves seemed to hesitate, frozen in place. A pale light from the horizon barely touched the water. I scanned the surface, looking for movement. Anything that would break the monotony, and then I saw it. Not above the waves, beneath, a shadow, vast, sliding silently beneath the hull. The water darkened around it. Thicker than night, denser than fog. It moved with intention. Like it knew exactly where it was going, I wanted to shout. But the fog swallowed my breath. My voice seemed to dissolve into the mist. I opened my mouth again. Silence. The boat creaked beneath me, soft, uneasy. My hands gripped the railing, cold and rough. Salt stung my palms. The shadow shifted, closer. I felt it before I saw it. A presence pressing against the water. A weight beneath the waves, watching. The horizon trembled. Or maybe it was just my eyes. The fog thickened, clinging to every surface. Every breath tasted of iron. Every heartbeat echoed in my chest. I tried to focus. The shadow moved with a rhythm. Slow. Intentional. The water rippled unnaturally. Not with wind. Not with waves. I leaned over the side, eyes straining through the mist. The shadow stretched, vast and silent. Its shape indistinct, fluid, impossible to name. The hum started then, low, vibrating through the boat, through my bones, through the fog itself. I wanted to turn away, to close my eyes. But the sense of being watched pinned me in place, heavy, unyielding. It was everywhere and nowhere. I whispered a name, not even a prayer. The fog swallowed it, no echo, only the hum and the shadow beneath. The boat rocked slightly, soft, almost imperceptible, but the shadow followed, sliding beneath, aligning with every sway. I tried to track it. Water shifted, darkened, vanished into itself. A ripple here, a shadow there, and then a sudden stillness. The horizon empty again, but the feeling remained. Eyes on me, watching, patient, infinite. I touched the railing again, cold, rough. The fog clung to my fingers. The hum lingered in my chest. And the metallic taste of something wrong lingered in my mouth. I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. The shadow was patient, silent, beneath. Time stretched. Minutes or hours? I couldn't tell. The water whispered under the hull. The fog pulsed with it, and still it waited. I tried to breathe slowly. Salt in the air, cold pressing against my cheeks, the shadow's presence beneath me. Every muscle tense, I lowered my gaze. The water darkened again. Just beneath the surface. Nothing concrete, nothing I could name. And yet I knew it was there. I closed my eyes, humming in my chest. Fog around me. Breath shallow. Alone. The horizon remained pale, empty, silent. And beneath me the shadow waited. The fog hung low over the water. Cold, wet, and thick. Every breath left a faint mist in front of my face. The dock creaked beneath my weight. Salt clung to my hair. The air smelled of damp wood and something faintly sweet. Then it appeared. A lantern. Small. Floating just above the fog. Bobbing, gentle, almost playful. Warm light glowed from it. Not harsh. Not bright. Almost human. Yet it carried no heat. No shadow fell beneath it. I stepped closer. Footsteps silent against the wet wood. The lantern drifted toward me. Slow. Curious. I held out my hand. It vanished before my fingers could touch it. Gone. As if it had never existed. A faint warmth lingered in the air. But only for a moment. I blinked. The fog thickened. Every exhale turned into a ghost. The dock seemed longer. Stretched in a way that made my chest tight. I whispered to myself. The words barely left my lips. They dissolved into the fog. No reply, no echo. Only silence. The lantern reappeared. Closer this time. It bobbed gently. An almost breath. Light reflected in the water below, shifting strangely. Ripples appeared where none should be. I reached again, fingers trembling. It was nearer now, warm, gentle, and gone again. Silence stretched, infinite. The fog seemed to pulse with it. Every heartbeat loud in my ears. Every breath thick with anticipation. I knelt on the dock. Cold water lapped against the posts. Salt stung my hands. The lantern floated closer, slow, deliberate. It hovered at eye level. I leaned forward. The light glimmered, almost inviting. A glow that felt alive, soft, patient, almost knowing. I reached once more. Fingertips brushed the fog. The lantern vanished again. No trace, no warmth, no shadow. Just the quiet stretching outward. The dock beneath me groaned. Wood shifting in the cold. The fog rolled in slow waves, carrying the faint scent of smoke, though no fire burned. I stood, hands empty, eyes searching. The lantern bobbed again, farther away now. Moving back through the mist, still glowing. Still silent, I tried to follow. Feet heavy, wood slippery beneath me. The fog thickened. The lantern drifted just beyond reach. No sound accompanied its movement. Only the soft lapping of water against the dock. I stopped. The lantern hovered. Alone in the mist, its glow warm, almost human, and yet wrong, unsettling, impossible. I could feel the fog pressing against me. Cool, damp, heavy. Every breath caught halfway. Every heartbeat a drum in the quiet. The lantern wavered, slowly. A faint rhythm, bobbing gently like a pulse. I thought I saw it tilt toward me. A curiosity, or a warning. I whispered my own name. It didn't reply. The fog swallowed the words. The lantern remained, floating, silent, imperfectly warm. I reached one last time. Empty air. Gone again. The dock stretched farther than memory allowed. The fog thickened into white walls. I was alone. The lantern drifted away. And still, I could feel its presence. The silence lingered. Heavy, patient, infinite. The warmth of the lantern nowhere. Its glow fading into the mist. Yet leaving something behind. A memory of light. Of a presence that was not entirely absence. I stayed there. Hands cold, feet wet. Eyes tracing the pale light that no longer existed. Breath slow, heart tight. Alone, and watched. The room smelled of old wood and wax. Evening light filtered through pale curtains. Dust floated in streaks that caught the fading glow. I noticed the railing, polished dark smooth beneath my fingers. A mirror of sorts, reflecting my hands, my arms. The room felt colder as I gazed. My reflection lingered. Too long. It moved slightly differently than I did. A delay, subtle, unsettling. A flicker of pale green crossed its eyes, and I realized I couldn't look away. Every instinct screamed to turn, to close my eyes. But my gaze was fixed, trapped. Shadows stretched behind me. thin, long fingers crawling across walls and floorboards. The room warped around them. Corners that should have ended continued, bending impossibly. I stepped back. The railing shifted beneath my touch, not in position, but in texture. Cooler than it should be, almost liquid. The reflection smiled, or at least it seemed to. Not a human smile, a twitch. A mockery of movement. I blinked. The railing's shine flickered with the green light. The shadows behind me shivered. Reaching, always reaching. Soft scratches echoed through the air, not loud, not urgent, just persistent. I turned slightly. The room behind me stretched again. Door frames elongated. Windows narrowed. Shadows slithered across surfaces that should have been empty. The reflection tilted its head. Just slightly. Almost curious. Almost patient. But wrong. I touched my face. Cold. Rough. The reflection touched its face the same way, but slower. Dragging fingers across features that weren't mine. A hum rose from somewhere beneath the floorboards. Soft, low, vibrating through the wood and into my chest. My breath caught. The air thickened with it. The shadows behind me paused, then crept further, stretching longer. I tried to step back again, but the railing followed. Not in space, but in intent. It stayed aligned with the reflection. My pulse quickened. Hands clammy, every nerve alert. I couldn't look away. The green flicker in its eyes held me. The reflection raised a hand, slowly, mirroring me. Then it hovered, not quite touching the railing. Almost floating. I tried to blink to shift my gaze. The reflection stayed, immovable, watching. The room warped more. Corners folded inward, then stretched outward. Floorboards rippled like water. Shadows thickened into smudges, then fingers, then hands. They pressed toward me, slow, intentional. I whispered a name. It echoed faintly, bouncing in the warped corners. The reflection didn't speak. Only the green glow lingered. Soft, hypnotic. I felt cold air along my neck, a subtle rustling behind my ears, but nothing moved. The shadows leaned. The reflection leaned. And I remained still. I touched the railing one last time. Cold, smooth, unyielding, but alive in a way I couldn't define. The green flicker pulsed once, then dimmed. I stepped back fully. Heart racing, breath shallow. The room returned slightly to its old shape. But the shadows lingered. Edges soft, wavering, and the railing's reflection. Not quite mine. I left the railing behind. The room smelled warmer. Normal again. But when I glanced over my shoulder, just for a second, the green in its eyes flickered one more time, and I realized I hadn't truly looked away at all. The metal walls were cold beneath my fingertips. Evening air crept through the portholes, damp and salty. The scent of oil and rust lingered in the corridors. A hum started low, barely audible at first, vibrating through the metal floors, through the railing beneath my palms. Each step toward it felt wrong. The corridor stretched farther than it should. Longer, narrower, bending slightly under the weight of the fog that hadn't reached here. The hum grew, a low, insistent vibration, like the boat itself was breathing, waiting. I paused at a junction. The air was thick with cold metal and faint mildew. My breath rose in misty puffs. The hum pulsed beneath my feet. I opened a door. The room was empty. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed, and still the hum intensified. Almost welcoming. Soft, patient, deliberate, I stepped inside. The floorboards beneath me shivered with each heartbeat. Metal panels reflected pale light from the corridor. But shadows pooled in the corners, dark and waiting. The hum pressed against my chest, a vibration that seemed alive. I traced it with my fingers along the wall. Cold, smooth, unyielding, yet humming beneath my touch. I tried to call out. My voice vanished into the hum, absorbed. No echo returned. Only the pulse of vibration, slow, methodical. I moved further into the room. Footsteps soft but certain. The hum shifted with each step, like it followed me, like it knew me. I crouched, tracing a seam in the floor. Metal shivered under my fingertips. Every panel seemed to hum louder in response. The walls themselves resonated. A pulse running through the room. I swallowed. The air tasted of iron and something faintly sweet. A scent I couldn't place. A presence pressing softly against my spine. The shadows stretched. Corners pulled inward, then extended outward. Nothing solid moved, yet everything shifted. The hum was patient, all-encompassing. I tried to step back. The doorframe seemed farther away. The corridor stretched impossibly long again. I felt the boat's heartbeat through the soles of my feet. I touched the wall. The vibration ran through my arm, through my chest, through the fog of breath hanging in the air. The hum pulsed, almost communicative, welcoming, waiting. The room smelled colder now, metallic and sharp, every breath tight, every heartbeat loud. I leaned closer to the source of the hum. But the floor remained empty. No machinery, no engine, nothing I could name. And yet it waited, alive. I closed my eyes. Humming beneath me, shadows curling in corners, air thick with anticipation. I could feel it tracing me, patient, deliberate. I opened my eyes. The walls reflected pale, wavering light. Nothing moved. And yet the hum continued. Stronger, but not threatening. Curious. I stepped back slowly, feet heavy, cautious. The doorframe stretched farther away. The corridor expanded. Time seemed to bend around it. The hum softened. A pulse fading to nothing. Leaving the emptiness, the cold, the shadows curling in corners, I leaned against the wall. Metal cold, damp. Breath shallow, alone and still. Watched. The air tasted faintly sweet. The hum lingered, memory-like. A vibration beneath the floorboards. Beneath everything, patient. I left the room. The corridor returned to its ordinary length. The hum faded almost completely. But when I glanced back just for a second, the shadows in the corners, they shifted slightly, and I knew it was still there. The night air was sharp. Salt and mist clung to my skin. The horizon was a thin line, dark and endless. Above, the sky stretched wide, empty, until it wasn't. A singular light appeared, enormous, hovering silently. It moved in ways that made my stomach lurch. Impossible angles, sudden shifts. A defiance of physics. I raised my eyes. The light followed the ship. Not directly above, not directly behind, but always there. Just beyond reach, the wind rustled across the deck. A soft, hissing whisper through rigging and rope. The wood groaned beneath my weight. Every footstep stretched longer than it should. I tried to track it, binoculars in hand, but the sky twisted, refolded, a dream bending back onto itself. The light remained, patient, curious. I leaned against the railing. Cold metal pressed into my palms, breath misting before my face. The hum of the ocean beneath, gentle but insistent. The light glimmered above, reflecting faintly on the water. It tilted slightly, hovering. Not a star. Not an aircraft. Something else, alive. I blinked. And the horizon shifted. The waves stretched into strange angles, foam curling unnaturally. The sky folding over itself like wet silk. The light followed every subtle movement of the ship. Curious, patient. I felt its gaze, though impossible. A weight pressing gently against the back of my neck. A quiet insistence. I raised my hand, fingers trembling. The light seemed to respond. Not exactly, but a subtle drift, a slight tilt toward me. The air smelled faintly of ozone, metallic and sharp. Salt lingered thick, and the hum of the ship blended with something else, a soft, vibrating pulse in the chest. The night felt alive. I tried to speak. No words left my mouth, only the sound of my own breath, and the quiet shift of water beneath the hull. The light followed every movement, patient and silent. Shadows from the mast stretched across the deck, pale and long, fingers of darkness reaching. The sky twisted again, clouds bending impossibly, and the light remained unwavering. I stepped toward it, not expecting to reach, just moving. The deck seemed to elongate beneath my feet. Each step echoed oddly. Stretching time and space around me, I paused. The light hovered, silent, a presence more than an object, almost human in patience, and yet not human at all. I tried to track it with binoculars again. The edges of vision blurred. Stars refracted. The horizon shifted. The light remained. Watching, I shivered. Not from cold, but from awareness. The weight of being observed, the hum in the wood, the pull in the air. I turned slightly. Shadows shifted on the deck. The ropes hissed softly in the wind. And above, the enormous light tilted again. Curious, patient, unreachable. I sank to my knees. Cold wood beneath, damp and splintered. Hands pressed to the railing. Eyes fixed on the impossible. Breath shallow. The light pulsed faintly. Not in rhythm with anything human. Not with the ship. Its own slow heartbeat. Alive in the silence, I watched it drift with the fog. Hovering. Always just beyond reach. The horizon shifting like a mirror. The waves folding unnaturally. The sky seemed to stretch, then refold. Time elongated. Every sound slowed. Every shadow stretched. The light remained. Above, watching, patient, curious. I lowered my gaze slightly. The deck creaked beneath me. Salt stung my skin. Breath thick in the cold night. I felt the pull of the light in my chest. A quiet insistence I could not name. And then slowly, I realized. The horizon might be empty. The sky might bend. But it wasn't alone. The light followed. Always. The night was still. Too still. Salt hung thick in the air, damp against my skin. The ocean went silent. No splash, no wind. No hum of the waves against the hull. Only my own heartbeat. Loud, echoing through my chest. Each thump a drum in the emptiness. I stepped to the railing. Cold metal pressed into my palms. Breath misted in front of me. Fog thickened, curling across the deck like smoke. The water beneath me shimmered faintly. At first I thought it was reflection. Then, faint ripples moved beneath the surface. Patterns, impossible, deliberate. I leaned closer. The fog pressed against my face, clinging, heavy, almost alive. A living breath brushing my cheeks. The ripples shifted again, forming shapes I could not name. Circles, lines, something intelligent in their rhythm. The water seemed aware. I swallowed hard. The silence pressed against me. A weight in my ears, my chest, my bones. Even the deck creaked softly beneath my feet, but the sound seemed distant. Faded. I tried to call out. Nothing. The fog absorbed my words. The ocean swallowed them. Only the patterns remained. Moving beneath the surface, cold salt spray stung my face. My palms tingled against the metal. The fog thickened further, pressing down, settling like soft hands on my shoulders. I watched the ripples shift again. Always moving, never still. Shaping something I couldn't understand. Shaping, waiting. The silence deepened. Even my breath sounded foreign. Every inhale felt loud. Every exhale a betrayal against the quiet. I stepped back from the railing. The deck underfoot felt strange, elongated, stretched. The fog twisted around me, thickening in unnatural folds. I crouched, cold wood biting my knees, salt and moisture clinging to clothes. The water beneath, alive in pattern and pulse. The ripples formed another shape. Angular, deliberate. I couldn't see the whole of it. The fog hid more than it revealed, I whispered to myself. My words faded into the night. No echo returned, only the soft, deliberate shifting of the waves beneath. The fog brushed my arms, soft, persistent, a weight that pressed against my chest. As if the air itself wanted me to notice, I dared to stare at the water longer. The ripples pulsed in a rhythm I couldn't follow. Shapes appearing and dissolving. The ocean beneath me alive, waiting. I felt a hum beneath the deck, soft, subtle, vibrating through the hull. The deck beneath my feet echoed it faintly. A heartbeat within a heartbeat. The fog thickened. Each step I took felt heavier. The silence enveloped me. Every sound I made seemed foreign. Every movement too loud. Too much. I crouched lower, pressing hands to the railing. Water ripples shifted again, forming lines that stretched farther than they should. Patterns moving beyond comprehension. Something watching. Something patient. The deck creaked faintly. My breath caught in my throat. The fog swirled closer. The cold pressed into my bones. I stepped back slowly. The ripples beneath continued. Silent. Impossible. The fog thickened like a living wall around me. I leaned against the railing again. Metal cold, damp, unyielding. The patterns moved beneath, waiting. Always waiting. The ocean remained silent. No wind, no splash, only the ripple patterns beneath, and the fog, pressing. I lowered my head. Breath shallow. eyes tracing impossible shapes in the water. Alone, and watched. The deck smelled of salt and oil. Night pressed against the ship like a heavy blanket. Fog drifted low, curling around railings and ropes. I thought I heard voices, soft, distant. Other crew members calling my name. Or was it just the wind shaping words? I followed them. Steps careful, hesitant. The hum of equipment underfoot joined the whispering air. The voices grew clearer, more insistent, echoing from ahead. The fog seemed to part slightly, guiding me forward. My heart beat faster, loud in my chest, but when I reached them, nothing. Empty deck, no figures, no movement. Only their equipment, hoses coiled neatly, harnesses draped over railings, tools laid out as if someone had just stepped away, yet the hum lingered, low, pulsing, strange. I stepped closer, hands brushing cold metal. The hum grew stronger. A vibration beneath my fingertips. The air tasted faintly of ozone, sharp and unnatural. I called out. No reply. Only the fog twisting softly around my ankles. The deck stretched longer than it should. Shadows pooled beneath railings, restless. The voices returned, fainter, indistinct, like echoes of echoes. I strained to hear them. But when I turned, nothing moved. The equipment hummed. Tools vibrating faintly, coils thrumming under my touch. Lights blinking in silent patterns I couldn't read, as if alive. I tried to trace the sound. Step by step, the hum shifted, leading me in circles. The fog thickened, pressing damp against my face. I looked over the railing. The water reflected pale light, calm and still. No movement beyond the ship. No signs of anyone. Yet the voices persisted, soft, patient. I touched the deck, cold, damp. The hum vibrated through the wood, up my arms. A presence beneath me, watching, waiting. I whispered their names. The fog swallowed the words. No echo returned. Only the humming, persistent, unyielding. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the deck. Thin fingers curling over crates and barrels. The equipment trembled. Lights flickered in sync with the hum. The deck groaned under invisible weight. I stepped back, air thick with anticipation. Salt stung my nostrils. The fog pressed harder, damp and cold. Every heartbeat deafening in the silence, I turned slowly. Every corner of the deck seemed empty, yet alive. The hum pulsed in response to my movement. Like it knew me, I leaned closer to the equipment. Metal cold beneath my hands, lights blinking softly. A faint vibration running through every surface. Almost like a heartbeat, almost like theirs. I tried to call again. Nothing. The fog pressed against my face. The air tasted faintly metallic. And still. The hum continued. The voices returned briefly. Indistinct, fading in and out. Calling, almost human. Then silence. A silence heavier than the fog itself. I stepped toward the railings. Hands gripping cold metal. The deck stretched unnaturally beneath me. I could feel it bending, shifting. The fog thickened further like a living wall. I crouched, tracing a coil of rope. Cold and rough under my fingers. Lights blinked in patterns that made no sense. The hum pulsed stronger, almost welcoming. But I knew it wasn't safe. I stood, breath shallow, heart racing, alone, and watched. I turned fully. The deck empty again. Equipment humming. Lights blinking. Shadows restless. I whispered their names one last time. No reply, no movement. Only the fog pressing in. Only the hum beneath my feet. Only the silence between the echoes. I took a step back. Cold metal railing pressed into my palms. Breath thick in the humid air. The voices gone. The deck empty. And still, I could feel it. Watching, alone. The vanishing crew left only their presence. The hum, the fog, the strange, lingering warmth of unseen eyes. The night air was cool. Salt and mist clung to my skin. The deck beneath me creaked softly with every step. Above, the stars shimmered, but not normally, twisting, shifting, shadows dancing between their light. Constellations moved, not like drifting clouds, but like eyes watching. Following me, a pale line of light stretched across the sky. Thin, unnatural, bending slowly toward the ocean. Curving as if pulled by something unseen, I raised my hands to the railing. Cold metal biting my palms, breath thick in the fog. Every heartbeat loud. The stars flickered again. each shimmer a subtle pulse. Time seemed wrong, stretched, then contracted. The ocean reflected the bending light. Ripples moved without wind, patterns forming and dissolving. The hum of the ship felt distant now, replaced by the weight of the sky above. I stepped closer to the edge. Mist clung to my clothes. The smell of salt thickened. The cold pressed along my spine. The pale line of light stretched, bending farther. The constellations shifted again. Curving, folding again. Shapes I almost recognized. Faces, figures, something alive in their motion. I blinked. The stars remained, but the deck felt longer. The horizon farther than it had been. Time bending like the light. I swallowed hard. The air tasted faintly metallic, each breath a whisper against the fog. The line of light curved closer to the waves, almost touching them, almost folding the sky into the ocean. I reached a hand toward the railing, metal cold, solid. Yet I felt the pull of the sky, subtle, insistent. Like gravity reversed, the stars shimmered again, patterns shifting faster, the line of light stretching impossibly, the ocean below responding, ripples moving in tandem. I stepped back. Deck beneath uneven, mist swirling around my ankles, the hum of the ship faint, all else silent. I crouched slightly, pressing hands to the railing. Pale light reflected off the metal, shadows stretched and warped. The stars above twisted again, shimmering more intensely. I blinked, trying to orient myself. Time felt fluid. Moments stretched, then collapsed. The pale line of light bent toward the horizon, always moving. I leaned closer to the edge again. The mist pressed against my face. Salt sharp in my nostrils, cold brushing the back of my neck. The ocean seemed aware, watching. The stars above pulsed faintly, slow, deliberate. The line of light bending closer, and I realized it wasn't just above. It followed the ship, patient, curious. I exhaled slowly, breath misting into the night. The sky seemed alive now, folding, twisting, watching. Time impossible. I traced the railing with my fingers. Metal solid beneath touch, yet the pull of the bending sky remained. Weight pressing down, though nothing could be seen. The stars shimmered once more, patterns that almost made sense, then dissolved. The pale line of light stretched to infinity. Bending closer, folding the horizon into itself, I stepped back. Mist thick around my legs, fog pressing along my arms. The ocean calm, unnaturally so. Ripples moving in silent response. I lowered my gaze. Deck solid beneath my feet. Breath shallow, uneven. The stars above still twisted. The pale line of light bending. Time uncertain. I turned slowly. The horizon stretched. The ocean reflected the bending light. Ripples moving as if alive, and I realized I was alone. Alone with the bending sky. The shimmering constellations. The line of light folding toward the water. I pressed my hands to the railing. Cold, unyielding, breath shallow, alone, and watched. The stars shimmered again. Time bent. The pale line of light stretched across the sky. And I felt small, insignificant, observed. The night fog pressed against the deck. Cold, damp, thick, salt clung to my skin and hair. I heard them first. Faint voices drifting across the mist. Whispering words I almost understood. Shadows of language half formed just out of reach. I stepped forward. Footsteps muted against the wet wood. The fog curled around my ankles. Breath rising in misty puffs. The voices shifted closer. Soft, careful, deliberate. Almost human. Almost familiar, I spoke. A name, a question. The words vanished into the fog. The voices fell silent. A hush that pressed against my ears, my chest. Shapes moved at the edge of perception. Twisting forms in the corner of my eyes. Never still. Never clear. Always just beyond focus. I turned slowly. Mist brushed against my arms. Salt sharp in my nostrils. Wood cold beneath my fingertips. The shapes retreated, folding into the fog. The silence stretched. Heavy, almost solid. My heartbeat echoed louder than the world around me. I could feel it through my chest, through the soles of my feet. I whispered again. No reply, only soft rustling of air through the rigging. The voices returned faintly, almost teasing, almost guiding. I stepped closer to the railing. Mist pressed against my face, cold and wet. The ocean beyond a dark, still mirror. No movement. Only the faint pulse of breath in the air. The voices drifted with the fog. Formless, patient. I strained to hear words. They almost made sense. But the moment I tried to understand, they shifted. Just out of reach, I crouched slightly, pressing hands to the deck. Metal railing cold beneath my palms. Wood damp beneath fingertips. The hum of the ship faint beneath the silence. Shapes moved again. Cornered shadows curling in impossible angles. The fog thickened, pressing against my shoulders. The air smelled faintly metallic. Sharp. Cold. I stepped back. Every movement amplified. Every footfall louder than it should be. The voices quieted again. A hush heavier than the mist itself, I leaned closer to the edge. Salt spray kissed my face. The fog curled, twisting around my legs. Shapes skittered at the edges of my vision. I whispered to them. Not names, not questions. Just small, careful words. They carried across the deck. Then disappeared. The mist thickened further. Pressing closer. Weight along my spine. The voices returned faint. Almost a sigh. Almost a murmur of presence. I traced the railing with my fingers. Cold metal, wet with condensation. Every movement reflected in the fog. Shadows stretching, twisting, retreating. The ocean beyond remained still, dark, silent, but the voices carried over it. Soft, patient, drifting. I crouched again, pressing palms to the wood. Every sense heightened, breath shallow, heart pounding, shapes curling at the edges of perception, whispers brushing against my mind. I tried to step forward. The fog resisted, thick, damp, alive. The voices shifted, almost beckoning, almost teasing. I stopped, held my breath. Silence stretched. Shapes still, mist heavy around me. The deck beneath, solid yet strange. I exhaled slowly. The voices returned faintly. Not words I could understand. Not shapes I could grasp. Only drifting. Always drifting. I pressed my hands against the railing again. Cold, unyielding. Breath shallow, alone. And watched. The fog curled. Shapes lingered at the edges of vision. The voices drifted. Almost human, almost familiar, and then silence. The night air was heavy. Fog hung low, curling along the deck. Salt pressed against my skin, damp and biting. I noticed it first. A hatch floating near the side of the ship. Rocking gently, no wind, no current. I leaned over the railing. Cold metal pressed into my palms. Breath rising in the fog. Eyes tracing the hatch as it drifted almost deliberately. The water around it was dark, still. Yet the hatch moved, slow and rhythmic, as if alive. I reached closer. Mist curling around my wrists. Something shifted beneath the surface. A figure, just glimpsed. Fingers of shadow reaching up. Eyes. I thought I saw eyes. I blinked. Gone. Only the hatch remained, rocking gently, the fog swallowing everything else. I swallowed hard. Salt sharp in my nostrils. The hum of the ship seemed distant. The water beneath silent. Suspiciously quiet. I leaned closer again. Mist brushing my face. The hatch floated nearer. No sound but the faint pulse of my heartbeat. Cold pressed along my spine. I thought I saw it move again. The figure just beneath. Eyes glimmering. A shadow curling beneath the hatch. Then nothing. Silence settled. Thicker than the fog. The hatch still. The water reflecting faint pale light. Ripples forming and fading with no wind. I crouched slightly, pressing hands to the railing. Metal cold and wet beneath my fingers. Fog pressing along my arms. The hum beneath the deck faint, almost a whisper. I stared, blinking against the mist. The figure lingered at the edge of vision. A shadow that moved just out of focus. Curious. Patient. I whispered a question to myself. Nothing returned. Only the gentle rocking of the hatch. The air pressed against my face like a hand. Salt sharp, mist cold. I leaned even closer, eyes straining against the darkness beneath. The hatch moved subtly toward me. A slow glide. Almost deliberate, the figure appeared again. Beneath the hatch. Watching. Blinking. Just a shadow now. Almost human. Almost alive, I blinked. It vanished. The water calm again. The hatch floating, unchanging. The fog curling and twisting. I stepped back slowly. Deck uneven beneath my boots. Cold metal biting my palms. The water dark and still. Ripples forming faint lines around the hatch. I breathed slowly. Fog curling around my face, salt thick in the air, the figure gone. Yet the hatch remained. I pressed hands to the railing again. Metal cold solid, the hatch floating, rocking, the fog thick, the water alive with unspoken motion. I crouched again, trying to steady my vision. The figure returned for a heartbeat. Beneath the hatch, a fleeting shadow, a glance of movement, then nothing. The night stretched. Time seemed wrong. The hatch continued its slow, unnatural rocking, the water reflecting pale light, fog curling like smoke across the deck. I leaned closer once more, mist pressing into my eyes, nose, mouth. The shadow beneath the hatch stirred again. Eyes, faint glimmers, then vanished, leaving only the rocking hatch. I stepped back. Cold metal beneath my palms. Fog heavy, damp, clinging, salt biting my nostrils. The air almost alive. The hatch floated, slow, gentle, no wind, no current. Only the faint hum beneath the deck, I whispered to myself. The figure never returned. Yet I could feel its presence, just beneath, waiting. I leaned over the railing one last time, mist curling along my face, cold pressing along my spine, eyes straining into the dark water, the hatch moving gently, the shadow vanished. I exhaled slowly, alone, the fog pressing against my shoulders, the water calm, the hatch floating, and I realized I was being watched. Fog pressed against the deck, heavy, damp, curling around railings and ropes. Salt clung to my skin, sharp and cold. Shadows crossed the sails. No wind moved them. Dark shapes sliding over pale canvas. Slow, deliberate. I froze, hands gripping the cold railing, breath rising in misty puffs. The hum of the ship distant, faint. A presence circled the vessel, cold, patient. Every step I took felt watched, every breath heavier than the last. The fog thickened. Edges of the deck vanished. Shapes emerged. Ghostly, shifting. Eyes that seemed to trace me through the mist. The sails rippled slightly, shadows gliding across them. No wind, no sound but my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I leaned closer to the railing, metal cold beneath my palms. Salt pressed into my nostrils. The fog curling around my ankles like fingers. The shapes shifted again. Slow, careful movements. Closer now. Circling the ship. Watching, I whispered to myself. No reply. Only the fog pressing closer, damp along my shoulders. The sails stretched, shadows moving with an almost sentient patience. I stepped forward. Wood creaked beneath my boots. Cold mist pressed against my face. Shadows curling along ropes and railings. The air tasted faintly metallic. The presence felt nearer. A weight along my spine. Cold pressing down, almost tangible. I could feel it circling me around the deck. The sails shifted again. Shadows weaving patterns. Shapes darker, more defined. Watching. Waiting. I crouched slightly, pressing hands to the deck. Metal railing cold beneath my fingers. Fog curling along my wrists. The ship's hum faint beneath the silence. The shadows, alive with intent. I stepped back slowly, mist thick around my boots. Every movement echoed unnaturally. Shadows lingered at the edges of vision, circling. I leaned closer to the center of the deck. Salt sharp against my tongue, cold air pressing along my neck. The sails shifting, shadows gliding over them. No wind, no movement but the shapes themselves, I whispered to the fog. No response. Only shadows twisting across the canvas. The presence patient, watching. I crouched again, hands brushing the wet wood. Shadows at the edges of my vision, shifting, curling, waiting. The fog pressing heavier with each breath. I turned slowly. Shapes moved around the ship, circling the sails, circling me, cold and patient. I pressed my palms to the railing, metal biting, damp with condensation, the fog thickening, curling around my arms, shadows shifting, more defined. Watching every motion, I exhaled slowly, breath misting into the night. Salt sharp in the air, the presence close, every shadow following, patient and deliberate. I stepped back again. Deck uneven beneath my boots, fog pressing around my legs, ankles. The sails shifting, shadows sliding over them. No wind, no sound. I crouched slightly, hands pressed to the deck. Shadows moving along ropes, railings, stretching, Almost human, almost alive, I whispered again. The fog swallowed my words. The shadows continued to glide across the sails, circling, watching. I stood slowly, mist curling along my face, cold pressing against my spine. The deck stretched beneath my feet, shadows shifting, patient and deliberate. I leaned closer to the railing one last time. Salt sharp in my nostrils, fog pressing damp and cold. The sails rippled slightly, shadows curling along them. I realized then, alone, completely alone, yet watched, circling shadows moving with cold, deliberate patience. I exhaled slowly, breath shaking, fog curling over every surface, shadows lingering along the sails. And I knew. I could feel them, watching, patient, waiting. The fog lay heavy across the deck. Salt stung my skin. Every rope, every railing, damp with moisture, I saw it first. A light on the horizon, slowly rotating. Long shadows stretching across the water. A lighthouse. Impossible. Maps said none existed. Yet the light persisted. Silent. Patient. The deck beneath me creaked softly. My boots wet against the wood. The hum of the ship distant. The fog pressing closer. I leaned over the railing. Mist curling around my face. Salt sharp in my nostrils. Eyes tracing the lighthouse across the dark water. The light rotated again, casting shadows that stretched impossibly. Shadows that didn't belong to anything I could see. Darkness slipping beneath the edges of the glow. I breathed slowly. The fog thickened, damp and cold. Every movement of the ship magnified. The water near the hull glassy, silent. I tried to focus. The lighthouse distant, yet unnervingly clear. No sound carried from it, only the faint hum beneath the deck. A presence, waiting. The shadows moved across the water, curled and stretched unnaturally. The lighthouse's glow painting them pale and long, shapes that shifted when I blinked. Forms almost human, I whispered to myself. No answer, only silence, deeper than the fog. The hum beneath my feet pulsing softly. The light sweeping across the horizon. I stepped closer to the railing, metal cold beneath my palms. The air sharp with salt, mist curling, pressing against my cheeks. The shadows shifting with each rotation. The lighthouse seemed alive, slow, deliberate. Its beam cutting through the fog, touching the water. Touching me, I crouched slightly. Hands on the wet wood, breath shallow. The fog pressed closer, salt sharp against my tongue. Shadows danced across the water, each rotation revealing something new. Something that vanished when I blinked. Eyes at the edge of perception, watching, patient. I stepped back slowly. The deck creaking beneath boots, fog curling along my legs, the lighthouse's light rotating. Shadows stretching impossibly long, I whispered again. The fog swallowed the sound. Only the lighthouse and its unnatural shadows remained. No other presence. Yet I felt eyes tracing me. The water around the ship remained still. No waves, no wind. Only the reflection of the rotating light. Pale, unyielding. I pressed my palms to the railing again. Metal cold, damp, mist curling around my wrists. The shadows moving across the water, stretching toward the ship. I leaned closer, straining to see. Salt sharp in my nostrils. The hum beneath the deck soft, constant. The lighthouse unwavering. The shadows curling, twisting. I exhaled slowly. Alone. Completely alone. Yet surrounded by the light. By the shadows. By the fog. I stepped back one last time. Deck uneven beneath my boots. Mist pressing against my face. The lighthouse beam rotating. Shadows stretching impossibly long. The fog pressed heavier. Salt sharp cold against my skin. The water glassy and silent. The lighthouse distant, impossible. Its beam sweeping across the horizon, I whispered, almost inaudibly. No answer. Only the light. Only the shadows. Only the fog pressing close, almost alive. I leaned against the railing, breath shallow. Mist curling over my face. Salt biting my tongue. The lighthouse rotating, silent, patient. Shadows stretching, reaching. I realized then, alone, and watched. The silent beacon cutting through the fog. And I could feel it, waiting. The air thickened around me. Heavy, damp, pressing against my skin. Salt sharp, mist curling along my face. A metallic taste filled my mouth. Bitter, sharp, clinging to my tongue. Each breath tasted of iron and cold. Instruments on the deck spun uselessly. Dials twisting, compasses turning in circles. Nothing pointing north, nothing grounded. Only the hum beneath my feet, low and insistent. I leaned over the railing, mist curling around my wrists. The water below glowed pale. An unnatural light rising from beneath the surface. Shapes emerged. No form I recognized. No right to exist. They shimmered beneath the pale glow, shifting slowly. Eyes? I thought I saw eyes. I blinked. They were still there. Shadows curling along angles that made no sense. The glow reflecting off my wet hands. The metallic taste stronger now. I pressed my palms to the railing. Cold metal biting my skin. The fog thick, pressing around my ankles. Shapes moving beneath the glow. Silent, deliberate, patient, I whispered. Nothing answered. Only the hum beneath the deck. Only the shapes twisting beneath the water. I crouched slightly. Deck damp beneath my boots. Breath rising in misty puffs. The glow illuminating shadows that defied reality. I leaned closer. Mist curling into my eyes. Salt biting my tongue. Shapes sliding beneath the pale water. Edges blurred. Impossible. The metallic taste intensified. Each inhalation harsh and bitter. Air heavy, thick, suffocating. The hum beneath my feet pulsing. The shapes shifting closer. I tried to focus. The water calm yet alive. Shadows moving in slow, impossible patterns. No current, no wind. Yet the light revealed them all, I whispered again, almost inaudibly. Nothing returned. Only the hum. Only the taste of metal. Only the shapes gliding beneath the surface. I stepped back slowly. Deck creaking beneath my boots. Mist thick, pressing along my shoulders. The glow beneath the water reflected off the ship's hull. Shapes curling along unseen edges. I crouched once more, hands pressed to the railing. Metal cold, wet, salt sharp against my tongue. Shapes moving beneath the water, slow and deliberate. Edges shifting, twisting. I leaned closer, mist curling into my hair around my wrists. The metallic taste biting harder. Shapes glimmering beneath the pale light. Watching. Waiting. I swallowed hard. Breath ragged, shallow. The fog pressing close, heavy. The hum beneath the deck constant. The shapes lingering beneath the glow. I blinked. Edges blurred. Impossible forms sliding through water that shouldn't move. Shadows curling along angles that defied physics. The metallic taste sharp, filling my mouth. I whispered again. No answer. Only the hum, low and insistent. Only the fog pressing damp and heavy. Only the pale glow revealing forms that had no right to exist. I stepped back. Deck uneven beneath my boots. Mist curling against my face and neck. The shapes shifting beneath the water. Closer now. Patient. Intent. I pressed hands to the railing. Metal cold, wet, breath ragged. Salt sharp against my tongue. The glow illuminating impossible edges. I leaned over slightly. Shadows beneath the water twisted. Forms shifting, bending in ways that made my stomach lurch. The metallic taste strong, filling every inhalation. I exhaled slowly. Alone. Completely alone. Yet surrounded. By the glow. By the shadows. By the thick metallic air. I whispered one last time. No answer. The shapes lingered. The water calm yet alive. The hum beneath the deck pulsing softly. I realized then. I could taste it in every breath. The air itself metallic, heavy, suffocating. The shapes waiting just beneath the glow. And I was utterly, completely alone. Fog clung to the deck. Thick, damp, curling around my boots. Every step swallowed by mist, it moved with intention. Fingers of fog curling along my arms, twisting around my ankles. Cold, wet, insistent, I swallowed. Breath sharp with salt, mist pressing into my nose and mouth. A metallic tang, faint but present. I thought I heard something. A whisper carried across the surface of the fog. Soft, almost playful. A name. My name, I whispered back. My own voice sounded strange, distant, foreign, as if coming from someone else. The fog thickened. It pressed closer, heavier, twisting around the railing, around the hull, rustling softly like cloth over skin. More whispers followed. Urging, laughing, warning. I couldn't place the words. Only their tone curling along the edge of comprehension. I leaned over the railing. Mist curling around my wrists. Cold water below, black and silent. Shapes moved just beneath the surface. I wasn't sure they were real. My breath came in shallow puffs. Fog pressing against my face. the whispers weaving closer, almost brushing my ears. Tickling, teasing, insistent. I stepped back. Deck wet beneath my boots, mist dripping along my collar, the fog curling tighter. I could feel it breathing around me. I whispered again. The fog swallowed it immediately. No echo, no response. Only the laughter, soft, far away, carried on the mist. Shapes danced at the edge of my vision. Dark, shifting, impossible. I blinked and they were gone. But the whispers remained, hovering, waiting. I pressed hands to the railing. Metal cold, slick with mist. Breath shallow. The fog wrapping, coiling. Each movement deliberate. I leaned closer to the mist, almost tasting it salty and damp. Faint laughter curling into my ears. My own heartbeat loud in the silence. Every step felt magnified. I whispered my name again. It returned, but not as I spoke it. Twisted, unfamiliar, carried across the fog. A warning or a joke? I could not tell. The fog shifted suddenly. Tighter around my legs. I felt fingers brush my skin. Cold, wet, unrelenting. Shadows curling within it, pale and elongated. I crouched slightly. Hands pressed to the wet wood. Mist dripping from my hair, the whispers circling. Soft, urgent, insistent. I took a step back. Deck creaking under boots. The fog curling along the edges. Whispers rising, falling, almost synchronized. The rhythm too deliberate to be random. I tried to focus. Shapes at the edge of vision. Eyes, shadows, something moving just beyond the mist. Waiting, watching, I whispered again. Nothing returned but echoes of my own voice. Distorted, foreign, the fog pressing heavier. Mist curling into my mouth, cold and damp. I stepped to the railing, pressed my face close to the fog. Fingers brushing the damp mist. Whispers closer now, almost tangible. Urging me, warning me, laughing softly. I shivered. Fog curling around my shoulders. Cold droplets on my cheeks. The whispers circling, teasing. My voice again, strange and unfamiliar. I leaned back. Deck slippery beneath my boots. Mist curling along the railing. The whispers persistent. Fingers of fog brushing closer. I exhaled slowly. Alone. Completely alone. Yet surrounded by whispers. Fog and shapes that had no right to exist. I whispered one last time. The fog swallowed it. No answer. Only the curl of mist around me. Only the laughter, soft and distant. Only the feeling of being watched. And I realized. The fog was alive, intentional, patient, and I was utterly alone, the horizon. It was wrong. Or maybe I was wrong. Lights in the distance blinked, then vanished. I leaned against the railing. Salt air curling in my hair. Mist heavy and damp on my skin. The ocean beneath me shifted subtly. A tilt I couldn't explain. Like the water was alive, testing my balance. I blinked. The horizon folded inwards, swallowing the faint lights. Each blink made the edge closer, tighter, impossible. The sea and sky blurred. Edges twisting as if painted by someone else. Shapes emerged, where none should have been. Dark forms sliding beneath the surface. Edges indistinct. Eyes, perhaps, or reflections of the horizon's distortion. Impossible to tell. I pressed hands to the railing. Cold metal slick with mist. Breath rising in short, shallow puffs. The ocean hummed low beneath my feet. Not a sound of waves. Something deeper, subtle, vibrating, alive. The horizon bent again. The water stretched, pulled. Shadows lengthened along the deck. Mist pressing against my face and neck. The air smelled damp, faintly metallic. A taste lingering at the back of my tongue. I leaned over slightly. Shapes below shifted as if aware of me. Moving together, deliberate, patient. Each movement a question I could not answer. I swallowed. Mist curling into my mouth and nose. Hands slick with condensation. The hum beneath me pulsed. Steady, inescapable. The horizon twisting further. I whispered almost involuntarily. The sound returned strange, distant. My voice like someone else's echo. The fog curling closer, responding in kind. Shapes beneath the water paused. Watching. Waiting. I stepped back. Deck creaking beneath boots. Mist pressing along my sleeves. The horizon bending, folding, consuming all light. No reference points remained. Only dark water stretching impossibly in all directions. A shiver ran through me. Cold fingers of air brushing my neck. The hum beneath the deck growing louder, resonating through the wood. shapes sliding beneath the pale glow, edges shifting, bending, impossible. I crouched slightly, hands pressed to wet wood, breath sharp in the salty air. The horizon a ribbon folding into itself, lights swallowed, shadows stretching, the ocean alive beneath me, tilting, testing, teasing. I whispered my name. The fog carried it back, altered, strange, foreign. The shapes responded with subtle movement, synchronized. A slow, patient unfolding, the horizon folded again. The sea tilted beneath my boots, mist curling along the railing, shapes rising, bending along impossible angles, each second stretching longer than it should. Time felt wrong. I pressed against the railing, metal cold, damp, breath shallow. The horizon, gone now. Lights disappeared. Shadows longer than they could be. The water alive, shifting beneath me. I took a tentative step forward. Deck groaning, slick with condensation. Mist brushing my hands and face. The hum beneath me constant. The shapes curling beneath the surface. Edges twisting in ways that made my stomach lurch. I whispered again. No response. Only the water moving, alive. Only the horizon impossible. Only the fog pressing, soft and patient. I leaned closer to the railing. Mist curling around my wrists. The metallic tang faint on my tongue. Shapes below glimmered, moving together. The hum resonating in my chest. I exhaled slowly. Alone. Completely alone. Yet surrounded. By fog, by shapes, by the water that shouldn't move. By a horizon that no longer existed. I stepped back. Hands pressed to cold metal. Mist dripping along sleeves. The hum beneath me, vibrating through every bone. The horizon vanished, and I realized there was no distance anymore. No edge, only the water. Only the shapes, only disorientation. And I could not tell where I ended, or where it began. Mist thickened around the deck. Cold droplets settling on my skin. The air smelled faintly of salt and something older. I moved slowly, boots wet, hands pressed against the railing. Then I saw them. Eyes, dozens of them. Floating above the waves. Pale, unblinking, or maybe blinking all at once. Fixed on me. The hum of the engines faded. A distant vibration that had been steady. Gone. Silence pressed in from every side. Only the soft rustling of fog against the metal rail. I leaned closer, trying to focus. Mist curling around my wrists. Eyes shifting slightly, drifting closer. Each blink in perfect unison. The water beneath seemed darker where they hovered. I swallowed. A taste of iron on my tongue. Cold air biting at the back of my throat. I could feel a weight in the fog, pressing. Watching me, I stepped back. Deck slick beneath my boots. Hands trembling, clinging to cold metal. Eyes drifting, hovering just out of reach. Their gaze, relentless. The fog thickened, soft and wet. It twisted around the railings across the deck. I could almost hear whispers carried on its surface. Or maybe it was the eyes themselves calling silently. Urging me, warning me. I blinked. Some eyes vanished. Others multiplied. Floating in shifting patterns across the water. Reflecting the pale, dying light. I took a shallow breath. The mist curling into my mouth and nose. A subtle metallic tang, cold and sharp. My own heartbeat loud, uneven, hammering against the silence. I could feel it in my chest, echoing in my temples. The eyes blinked again, all together, a rhythm I couldn't match. I wanted to look away, but my vision clung to them, a fixed, impossible focus. Shadows moved beneath the mist. Not the water, something darker. Shapes I couldn't name, eyes reflecting faintly off ripples that shouldn't exist. I crouched slightly, pressing hands against the deck. Cold, wet, slick. Breath rising in short, panicked clouds. The fog wrapping closer, a living weight. Eyes floating, patient. Unyielding, I whispered. My own voice foreign in the stillness. It carried, lost in the thick mist. The eyes did not move, did not blink. They waited. I took another step back. The deck creaking under my weight. Mist dripping along sleeves, along boots. The hum beneath the deck returning faintly. Not engines, not machinery. Something else. A subtle vibration beneath my feet. The eyes shifted, closer now, reflecting the faint, pale light. Not warmth. Not sunlight. Something colder. Something patient. I tried to count them. Impossible. They drifted, vanished, reappeared. A silent chorus, floating just above the water. Watching. waiting. I reached out a trembling hand, mist curling through my fingers. Nothing there, only air, only the eyes, a ripple moved beneath the surface. The water bending strangely, shapes moving beneath the waves, eyes following every subtle tilt of my body, every shift of my gaze. I leaned against the railing, hands slick with condensation, fog pressing against my cheeks, the metallic taste lingering in my mouth, eyes blinking again. All at once, a single unnatural rhythm, I whispered again. A question this time. No answer came. Only the mist, thick, curling, heavy. The eyes floating, unblinking, patient. I took a shallow step back. Deck slippery beneath me, the fog curling tighter, closer to my chest. Breath sharp and cold, the hum beneath my boots pulsing faintly. The eyes shifted, then paused. A momentary stillness, tense and waiting. I realized I was holding my breath. The mist pressing closer, the waves reflecting nothing but the unblinking gaze. I let my breath go slowly, a trembling exhale, eyes drifting slightly further apart, but never gone. Never unobserving, the fog seemed to pulse, the water dark beneath the mist, eyes floating, waiting. I pressed my hands against the railing again, breath shallow, heart loud in my ears, and I realized I was not alone. Not truly, and perhaps I never would be. The deck groaned beneath me, mist curling along the railings, damp and cold. The air smelled faintly of salt and iron. I felt it first in the tilt of the ship, a subtle, unnatural sway like something heavy moving below. I paused, boots damp, hands pressed against the railing. Nothing visible, only the creak of the hull. Objects shifted slightly. A cup teetered on the edge of the table, then fell. No one was there. I moved down the corridor. Metal walls slick with condensation. Soft fog creeping in from the open hatch. Every step echoed strangely. The hallway stretched farther than it should have. Reflections caught my eye. Polished metal, glass, the darkened windows. Shadows that weren't mine. Flickering, pale. Almost human in shape, but wrong. I stopped. Held my breath. The ship tilted again, sharper this time. Cold air rushing past, brushing my neck. I could feel it. The presence. Patient. Waiting. I leaned closer to a mirror. My own face stared back, pale and drawn. But behind it, another shadow. Just a flicker at first, then longer, more defined. It moved differently than I did. A silent companion, unseen by the rest of the world. The hum of the engines faded. A low vibration ran through the deck. Soft, almost imperceptible. It seemed to follow me. Every step I took was echoed by the ship's subtle groan. I reached out toward a hanging lamp. It swayed slightly, though no breeze existed. Fingers trembling, brushing the cool metal. The shadow in the reflection shifted, closer. Eyes I could not see, felt watching. The fog pressed against the walls. Thicker now, heavier. I could hear faint rustling, soft footsteps. Not mine. Not anything I recognized. I exhaled slowly, tasting the cold salt in the air. The metallic tang lingered faintly, sharp on my tongue. Objects moved again. A notebook slid across the table. A chair tilted, then righted itself. All subtle, almost polite. All deliberate. I stepped back, heart hammering. The tilt of the ship increased. A gentle sway, but unmistakable. Something moving through the vessel, unseen. I could feel its weight, shifting the air, bending the deck beneath me. I moved through the cabins. Windows fogged, condensation dripping from corners. Every reflective surface caught glimpses. Shadows flicking at edges, vanishing when I blinked. I couldn't look away. Each reflection a reminder I was not alone, I whispered. Nothing returned. Only the soft echo of my own voice altered slightly. Strange and foreign, as if the presence carried it through the walls, twisting it. I pressed my hands against the rail. Cold, wet, rough. The fog curling around my wrists, climbing my sleeves. Soft footsteps behind me, always one beat off. I turned, nothing. Air moved differently, displaced. I felt the shape of it passing close, brushing the edges of my mind. I found the navigation table. Charts scattered across the wood, pages fluttering without wind. The compass needle swung sharply, then stilled. Reflections in the polished brass glimmered. Shadows lingered at the edges. Almost human. Almost patient. I moved toward the hatch. The tilt of the ship now unmistakable, deliberate. A presence weighty, hovering just beyond perception. Each step echoed faintly, mirrored by the unseen. I could feel it waiting, circling. I paused at the open doorway, mist curling in like fingers, cold and wet against my face. A soft hum vibrated through the deck. The shadows in the reflection shifted again. Eyes I could not see, fixed, patient. I exhaled slowly, hands wet and trembling on the railing. The ship groaned beneath me. Fog pressed closer. Every reflective surface held something watching, something unseen. I stepped back. Boots slick on the deck. The presence moved again, shifting weight, tilting the vessel. Not violent, but deliberate. I realized it could feel my fear, could measure it in each heartbeat. The shadows lingered, patient, silent, always just at the edge. I could feel their intent pressing through the fog, through the metal. Breath shallow, pulse loud. The ship and the unseen passenger moved together. In rhythm, in silence, in dread. I turned toward the corridor. Mist curling, cold against my cheek. Shadows flitting in every reflective surface. All waiting, watching, and I realized I was no longer alone. Had never truly been. The deck glimmered faintly. Mist curling along the rails, damp and cold. Salt clung to my skin. Breath visible, slow, steady. Then it appeared beneath the hull, a pale light, pulsing softly, rhythmic, insistent. It washed over the deck in strange hues, blue shifting to green, then white. I froze. Water bubbled unnaturally along the side. Tiny ripples expanded, colliding silently. The hull trembled beneath my boots. Electric tension hummed in the air. My fingers tingled. I leaned closer to the railing. Fog curling between my arms, damp on my skin. The pulsing light grew brighter. Shadows danced unnaturally across the deck. Each pulse stretched longer, slower, hypnotic. I couldn't look away. Eyes locked on the shifting glow beneath the water. Ripples formed patterns, shapes I didn't recognize. My heart beat loud, echoing in my ears. The hum beneath the ship deepened, vibrating through my chest. The fog thickened, pressing against my legs, cold and damp. I could feel the air shimmer, charged. Static prickled across my skin, hairs rising. The pulsing light reflected in every polished surface. Each reflection seemed slightly delayed, lagging behind the real thing. I stepped back, boots slick against the wet deck. The rhythm of the pulses quickened. The water bubbled higher, reaching toward the hull. Not waves, but something alive. Slow, deliberate movement circling beneath me. I pressed my hands to the railing, cold, vibrating, alive. A faint taste of iron filled my mouth. The light pulsed brighter, almost human in rhythm. It wasn't dangerous yet, but I could feel intent. The fog shifted again. Soft tendrils brushing my cheeks, damp, smelling faintly of rust. Whispers seemed to ride the mist. I couldn't understand the words, only the tone. Soft, insistent. Calling me closer. I couldn't move. Feet glued to the deck. Eyes drawn to the light's rhythm. The water bubbled faster. Ripples now coalescing into shapes that shouldn't exist. I swallowed, tasting salt and fear. Air shimmered against my skin, charged and heavy. The hum beneath the hull rose, not loud but deep, resonating in every bone. I felt it in my chest, in my hands. The light pulsed brighter still. I could see shadows moving just below the surface. Not fish, not anything natural. Slow, deliberate watching, waiting. I tried to step back, but my legs felt heavy. Every pulse tugged at me. The fog thickened, curling like fingers around my arms, cold, damp, almost sticky. Soft whispers carried over the deck. I exhaled slowly, fingers gripping the railing. The water shifted. Ripples forming concentric circles, spreading outward, pulsing with the same rhythm as the light. Something beneath was alive. I blinked. The deck seemed longer than before, shadows bending in impossible angles. Every reflection held the pulsing light. Every shadow moved slightly out of sync. I wanted to look away. I wanted to run. But the light held me. Each pulse a pull in my chest. Each ripple a tug at my mind. I leaned closer again, fog curling around my sleeves. Cold, wet, smelling faintly metallic. The water shimmered beneath the hull, shapes moving just below the surface. I realized I wasn't imagining it. The pulsing light, alive, deliberate, watching, curious. A final pulse washed across the deck. The shadows stretched. The fog pressed closer. The ship seemed to tilt subtly beneath me, as if testing my weight. The hum resonated low and insistent. I stepped back slowly, breath shallow, salty on my lips, fog swirling, damp against my cheeks. The light pulsed beneath the hull, constant, inescapable, and I knew I was not alone. The deck gleamed pale in the shifting glow. Water bubbled softly, alive and silent. Every reflection shimmered with the pulsing light. Shadows lingered at the edges of vision. I could feel it, waiting, watching, and I couldn't look away. The deck was silent. No footsteps, no voices, only the fog, thick and suffocating. It pressed against my skin like a living thing. Cold, damp, heavy. The crew, gone. Empty cabins, untouched instruments. Their presence evaporated. The hum of the engines no longer carried the comfort of company. Even the radio, dead. I leaned against the railing. Salt clung to my fingers. The mist wrapped around me, rustling softly. Every breath felt sharp. Every heartbeat too loud. The horizon blurred. Water and fog folding into each other. Nothing moved as it should. The sea didn't ripple. The wind didn't stir. I called out once. My voice felt alien in my own mouth. It vanished into the fog. No reply. No echo. I walked along the deck. Steps hesitant, careful. Wood creaked beneath boots. Shadowed shapes lingered just at the edge of vision. Every time I blinked, they shifted. The radio crackled once, faintly. Then silence. Static lingered on the surface. A metallic taste rose in my mouth. The world felt empty, yet watched. Fog rolled higher, clinging to railings and ropes. It smelled of damp iron, brine, and something faintly sweet. A low hum vibrated under the hull. I couldn't tell if it was the engines, or something else. The instruments spun uselessly, dials twisting without reason, lights flickering, pale and insistent. Water lapped against the hull with unnatural stillness, every ripple a silent echo of movement that wasn't there. I stepped closer to the bow, mist sliding over my hands. The horizon seemed to bend inward. Shapes formed and vanished beneath the water. Nothing solid, but all deliberate. I touched the railing again, cold, smooth, vibrating faintly. The fog whispered over my skin, soft syllables, almost words. Warnings or invitations? I couldn't tell. Alone. Truly alone. Not just absence of people, absence of order. A world unmoored. The rules I knew no longer applied. The deck beneath me creaked again. I spun but saw nothing. Shadows lingered at the edges of vision. Mist pressed in closer. I could feel its weight in my chest, on my shoulders. The horizon folded further. Distant lights swallowed whole. A faint glow beneath the hull pulsed, rhythmic, patient. I leaned over the side. Ripples formed patterns I could not decipher. I swallowed hard. Salt and fear on my tongue, air thick, almost viscous. I tried to move. Legs felt slow, heavy, soft footsteps, or imagined. Every step echoed in the silence, mist curling along my sleeves, dripping. The ship tilted subtly beneath me. Not wind, not waves. Something deliberate. I breathed slowly. Shadows moved with me, always just beyond reach. Every reflection caught in a puddle shimmered differently. Time felt distorted. Minutes stretched like hours. The fog pressed against my face. Cold, damp, insistent. I could hear the whisper of water across metal. Each sound magnified, unnatural. Each breath loud in the silence. I reached for the railing. Steel cold and vibrating faintly. The deck stretched beneath my fingers. The air hummed softly. I could feel it everywhere. Watching. I sank to the deck, back against the railing. Fog curling around my ankles, clinging. Silence so dense it hurt to hear. Every instinct screamed to run, but nowhere to go. The ship drifted, alone, in a world unmoored. Mist thick, horizon folding. The sea and sky became one pale, endless shadow, and I realized I was utterly, irreversibly alone. No voices, no footsteps. Only fog, water, and the soft hum beneath the hull. All deliberate, all patient, watching. I could not move, could not look away. The silence pressed in, fog curling like fingers around my arms. And the world obeyed nothing but its own rules. The water was still, too still. Fog drifted low across the deck, curling around my boots. Each breath hung heavy, damp and cold. I leaned over the railing, expected my reflection. Instead, something else waited. Ripples stretched across the surface. They didn't distort me. They showed places I had never been. Structures rose impossibly, twisting into the sky like metal fingers. Beings glided through shadows that were not shadows. Eyes everywhere, watching. I blinked. The scene shifted. Buildings bent like liquid. Creatures moved with grace and menace all at once. Every movement whispered. Soft, unintelligible murmurs across the water. The fog thickened. It pressed against my face, clinging to hair and sleeves. Salt stung my nostrils. Wood creaked beneath boots. I could feel the ship tremble. I reached toward the water. Fingers hovered just above the surface. The ripples pulsed as if alive. Each wave a breath. Each reflection a secret. I leaned closer. The beings turned. Their gaze followed me beneath the glassy surface. I shivered. A hum vibrated under the hull. Low, insistent, impossible to place. The water shifted again. A city of impossible geometry rose and fell beneath the waves. Bridges arched in circles that defied logic. Light glimmered from unseen sources. Shadows stretched. I swallowed. Metallic taste on my tongue. Every instinct screamed to step back. Yet I could not. I could not look away. Fog curled higher, muffling sound. Even my heartbeat seemed too loud. The air was thick, electric, humming softly. The deck tilted subtly beneath me. Not wind, not waves. Something deliberate. A ripple crossed the surface. A figure swam through it. Not human. Not anything I could name. Its gaze met mine, then vanished. The reflection changed again. Structures folded, creatures drifted. Scenes impossible, alive, breathing beneath the water. I reached for the railing. Cold steel vibrating faintly. Mist clung to my skin, pressing wet. Whispers grew louder, but still indecipherable. Soft syllables brushing my ears. Warnings or invitations, I could not tell. Time warped around me. Minutes stretched, condensed, then vanished. I crouched, pressed my hands to the deck. The ship trembled beneath me. Ripples echoed beneath the hull. Light shimmered across the waves, pale, ghostly. I could feel the pull of something deep, unseen. The fog thickened still, every sense heightened. Taste, touch, smell, sound, woven into a single weight. Every reflection in the water shifting, bending. Every whisper everywhere watching. I leaned again over the edge. The water reflected worlds that should not exist. Beings, cities, impossible skies. I could feel their gaze brushing against my mind. Ripples like breath against my skin, and then silence. The hum beneath the hull faded. The whispers vanished into the fog. The reflections stilled. I stepped back. Shivers ran through me. Mist curled around my arms and legs. The water returned to a deceptive calm. My own reflection shimmered, pale and fragile on the surface. I exhaled slowly, heart still racing. The ship swayed gently, fog drifting, pressing. And somewhere beneath, the deep kept its secrets. I could not stop looking, could not stop listening. Every ripple, every whisper, a world apart, waiting, patient. Night settled over the deck. Thick fog clung to the rails. The air tasted faintly of salt and iron. My eyes caught a glow, pale and unwavering, just beyond the mist. It moved with me. Not fast, not hurried. Patient, alive, always hovering at the edge of vision. I turned my head slowly. It mirrored me. Every shift of my stance, every step along the slick wood, it adjusted. Never closer, never farther. Just there. I tried to ignore it. Closed my eyes. Tried to sleep. Breath heavy, damp against my lips. But when I opened them again, the light lingered. The fog carried its glow diffusing across the deck. Shadows stretched long and trembling. I could hear the ship sigh beneath me. Wood groaned, ropes rasped. The light seemed to pulse with the motion. I whispered my own name. The fog swallowed it. Silence answered. Yet the glow remained, watching, patient. I moved forward, footsteps soft, swallowed by mist. The pale light shifted with me, tracing me like a careful finger over the edge of the world. The sea beyond was black, still. No waves, no wind. Only the pale illumination brushing the fog like breathing. I could feel it in my bones, cold, electric, alive. I stopped, held my breath. The hum of the night, subtle and steady, carried on the fog. A rhythm, a presence. It never approached, yet I could not shake the sense it was close. Closer than the fog, closer than the air. its patience pressed against my skin. Every hair stood, every nerve alert. I glanced over the railing. Water reflected nothing of the stars, only a pale shimmer where it hovered, trailing me like an echo. I leaned closer. The light pulsed. Soft, deliberate, unblinking. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time itself seemed unsure. I could not sleep. I could not close my eyes without feeling it just beyond. The fog thickened. It crawled into my clothes, into my hair, pressing like fingers. Salt stung my nose. The hum grew quieter, lower, almost imperceptible. And still the light followed, I whispered again. Nothing but my own voice returned. And the soft, unwavering glow, always just beyond reach. I tried moving randomly to confuse it. Left, right, forward, back, every path, every turn. It adjusted. The light followed, gentle but insistent, patient, intelligent, knowing. I leaned against the railing, fingers gripping cold metal, the deck under me damp with mist, my own heartbeat loud in my ears, and the glow never leaving. Time folded over itself. The fog shifted, rustling like silk. Air pressed against my cheeks, heavy and damp. A faint taste of iron lingered in my mouth. The light pulsed once, then again. As if breathing alongside me, I realized I had stopped moving. Standing alone in the center of the deck, the fog swirling. Eyes strained, yet it remained at the periphery, watching, patient. The night deepened, stars hidden behind thick layers of mist. Silence and subtle hum intertwined. Every step I considered, every glance I dared. The pale light followed. I could not look away, could not escape, could not sleep, and still it waited, patient, alive, a companion I did not ask for and could not leave behind. The fog thickened, a blanket so dense it pressed against my skin. The salt stung my nostrils. Every breath felt heavy, wet, and slow. Shapes swirled just beyond sight. They emerged, receded, never lingering long enough to define. Shadows without edges, moving with the hum of the ocean, a hum that seemed to vibrate inside my chest. I stepped forward. Wood creaked beneath damp soles. My fingers brushed the railing. Cold, slick, solid, yet the fog around it felt fluid, as if the air itself were breathing. I tried to reach for the shapes, but they dissolved before my eyes. Or maybe they were never there at all. Maybe they were only in the corners of my mind. Mirrors of my own fear. The silence deepened. Even the waves seemed to stall. No slap, no rush of water. Only the hum, the soft rustle of fog sliding across the deck, and my own ragged breathing. I stopped. Let the mist curl around me, fingers brushing my arms wet and cold. A shadow flitted across my vision. Gone when I blinked, I walked slowly. Every step measured, deliberate. The fog shifted with me, thick as wool, heavy as stone. I could smell the salt, the wet wood, the faint metallic tang of my own panic. Shapes moved at the edges of perception, sometimes tall, sometimes low. Sometimes I thought I saw eyes. But when I focused, nothing, only fog, only silence. I realized then that I would never know. Not whether they were real, not whether I was safe, not even whether I still belonged to the world I remembered. The hum of the ocean wrapped around me. A constant, gentle vibration through the deck, the rails, my bones. I could not escape it, and I did not try. The fog became companion, its cool fingers brushing my face, threading through my hair. I could feel it in the air I breathed. A presence that did not speak, but did not leave. Shapes swirled in the mist. I watched them. I did not reach. I did not move away. They existed and they did not. I existed and I did not. Time lost meaning. Minutes folded into hours. The fog, the hum, the wet salt air, constant. I understood then I was alone. And yet, not alone. The fog was here. The hum was here. The shapes, maybe they were here too. Or maybe they were only me. I leaned against the railing. Cold metal against cold fingers. Mist clung to my hair, my clothes, my skin. And I breathed, slowly, accepting. The horizon disappeared. No stars, no moon. Only fog and the faint eternal vibration of the sea. I closed my eyes. Felt the shapes move, rise, fall, recede. Felt the hum thrumming beneath the deck. Felt the fog press against my cheeks, my chest, my back. I did not move. I did not call. I did not hope. I let it surround me, fold over me, become me, and for the first time in hours, I felt a strange kind of peace. The fog was patient, the hum unending, and I, alone, drifting, finally accepting.